Hi, I'm Lisa Zawrotny from New York State, and you're listening to Pod Savvy Guide.
Hey, my name's Steph, and I'm your Pod Savvy Guide. And you guys, I can't even tell you how excited I am to be here with Lisa. We recorded a couple months ago on a different one of my shows, and afterwards, I found out that you had a podcast. And so we started, like, after we were recording, we were talking about women in podcasting. And I was like, Lisa, you have to come back. So I want to pick up where we left off in our conversation about, you starting your podcast. Like, what fears, if you had any, of getting started?
Oh, I absolutely did. And I was inspired because I really believe women should be in podcasting. So I'm so excited we're having this conversation. But I had the fears of who am I to do this? Who wants to listen to what I have to say? Can I even do this? How do I do this? I mean, I think I had all the fears, like all at once. But I think the biggest was probably that voice trying to tell me inside who even wants to listen to this. And I'm so glad I didn't listen to that voice.
Well, okay, so share a little bit with this. You've recorded now hundreds of episodes for your show.
Yes.
And so, like, explain why you're happy you didn't listen to that voice.
Oh my goodness. So for context, I'm over 300 episodes now. And that is
Amazing.
thank you. That's a very small percentage of podcasters make it to that
Mm-hmm.
point. I think it's a combination of things. I'm glad I didn't listen to that voice because we need to try things that really matter to us, no matter what happens. Even if I did 10 episodes or 25 and then I decided it wasn't for me, I needed to not pre-reject myself. So that's the first thing that I think of. I'm also so grateful for all the connections I've made. This is such a great example. You and me talking. Without podcasting, this wouldn't have happened. And what I have learned from podcasting, just in terms of the people that I've met and the voice that I have and the opinions that I have. I mean, who knew I had this much to say? I'm so glad that I gave myself a chance to explore that. And on top of that, I feel like I've been able to be a model for and to encourage others, especially other women in podcasting. I mean, even having this follow-up conversation and you being excited about hearing my experience and, just being able to encourage others, all of those reasons and more. I'm so glad that I gave myself and my podcast a chance.
Well, and like what you said at the beginning, where you're like, who would want to listen to me? And like all of those doubts. And now, like you said, a very small percentage of podcasters get to 300 episodes and
Yeah.
all these opportunities, everything that you've learned. And so can we go back though to when you were having these doubts? Because I think it's easy when you're removed from it and you see the bigger picture of like, oh, I'm so happy I did it now. But
Yeah,
becoming a creator can be one of the most vulnerable, like, things ever. I've had people be like, "I feel like creating makes me feel like I have to go to therapy because it's opening up all of these insecurities that you didn't know you had," you know? And so,
totally.
how did you push through that?
So a big part of that was finding others who supported me in doing this, who were encouraging me, just like you and I are having this conversation, just like anyone listening who's like, I think I want to do a podcast, message me and I will tell you, do it. I will give you some advice. I mean, you want to do it as much the right way as you can, thinking through some things and getting the right support. But I think that's really the key. I figured out what I couldn't figure out or what I was so unsure of that it was keeping me from doing it. I figured out what my blocks were. And honestly, the two biggest things were the mindset block and uh, that I got through because I was a guest. And I started to learn what I had to say. And I thought, well, if I can say it to other people, why can't I say it on my own podcast? And then the other side was technology, and I got help with that. So I would say look for support, whether that's coaching, friends, accountability partner, somebody who can help you with a piece of it that feels too foreign and like too much of a hurdle.
And that's an interesting point. So you started as a guest on a lot of shows?
I did.
Because you were a fantastic guest when I just had you on. So how did you, start to, like, get booked on other shows?
So to ease into it, so starting with the guesting originally, so I started my podcast in June of 2020, and I started guesting on podcasts, summits, any kind of interview opportunity in 2017. And that started with like
Oh.
networking with people and just finding out like they really liked that I had this different take on productivity, right? It was unique and it was different and they wanted to talk about it. And when I first started out, I was awkward and I was unsure and I was scared and I was nervous, but like anything else, do it scared. All right. That's really courage isn't the absence of fear, it's doing it with fear. And so I would do that and I would try it. And then I started to think, okay, this has potential. I would love to be asking the questions. I ask a question, the questions as a coach all the time. Why not in an interview style? So I actually did like a mini series, sort of an interview series on Facebook where I had a group all about gratitude and I would ask people like a short set of questions to ask them to tell me about how they practice gratitude. The
Mhm.
scope was really small, it was super simple, and it got me used to being in the host seat. And the more that I practice this, and it's like anything else, right? Take small steps, keep repeating them as much as you can, keep trying, and you'll get more and more confident. And then that's when I was like, yeah, it's time for a podcast, but I'm still so nervous because this is a real jump into like different content, meaningful content to me. What do I do? But I worked my way through by getting used to having conversations, used to explaining myself in more succinct ways. It's that whole, "Hey, tell me about yourself," or "Give me a bio," or whatever, and at first you're like, and then eventually you practice it and you get used to how to distill down your ideas, and the more you do it, the better it gets.
I think, like, I that you being a guest on shows is honestly one of the best ways for people to get started in podcasting because
Yeah.
you get to see how so many people are doing it. And so,
Yes.
can you tell me some things that you learned from other podcasters as you've been on their shows that you're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that's cool. I want to take that for my podcast."
I love that you asked that. So I think in the very beginning, it was more of learning the platforms, right? Because as a guest, I'm like, oh, I'm on Riverside now, and I'm like trying out these different. I mean, I knew what Zoom was, we could
Mhm.
do that, but I'm trying out all these different things. So I was sort of learning their process. I was learning their intake. And then when I began podcasting myself, I paid even more attention. So that's such a great point, Steph, that you can watch how people on the other side are doing it and then take what you like. I loved people who were super organized, who gave me expectations. You do this so beautifully where we have, a calendar event and I know what to expect. I know where to show up. I know what we're talking about. You have links to where you need to go. And so I would watch the way people would do intake, right? Getting information about me as a guest, then processing the information and letting me know where and when to show up, how it was going to work. I watched how podcasters would promote the episode after. And that's so important because it's all well and good to have a great setup and a great recording. But if you don't do anything with it after, that can be challenging. And I would watch all the aspects of the administrative aspects of how they would do it. And then once I got that set, I would start to watch how they would ask questions, how they would listen to me, how they would, lead me into a topic or cut me off or whatever. And sometimes I would notice how they would do things and not really be a fan of it. Like, and then
Mhm.
other times I'd be like, "Oh, I wanna try doing that. I really like how that was said." I also listen to a lot of podcasts for ways in which people will phrase things and stuff like that, and it's not that I'm taking from that, but I'm learning how again, they're distilling information because we're trying to get so much impact in potentially a short period of time.
No, and I think that, like, if even how you were, like, realizing, "Oh, actually, that's not what I want." I've listened to so many podcasts before, and I'm like, "Oh, I think I do that or cut that person off," or, and it gets you like, the more that you're immersed in podcasting, I really do feel like it helps you to see how to be a better host, and
Yeah.
you're the productivity expert. I mean, that's what we nerded out in the last episode.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure that seeing all of these systems probably made you be like, "And this is how I want to do this," so that there's less time on the admin and more time behind the mic.
Oh, 100%. And then also, I think when you have those systems set up and it's really smooth, it lets the quality of the conversation shine through, and it lets you focus where it really matters, and it also, it makes for a confident guest. When a guest knows what's going on, like, and I've had situations at this point now, I've been on I've been a guest over 160 times. I've sort of lost count at this point. I have a Spotify playlist of my guest spots, which is one way in which
Oh.
I share where I've been. So, it helps promote the other podcasters whose shows I've been on. And it also gives people a sense and other podcasters a sense of what I'm like as a guest. So it's one link that I can send and they can listen. And that has well over 100 episodes on it as examples of what I've done. And during
Okay,
that
wait,
time,
can I
yeah,
just pause you? That's
yeah,
genius. Because I often see people, have it on their website, but then you
yep.
have to constantly update it and add like the image. But to just have from your website a link to your Spotify
Mhm.
playlist is so much easier to update it that way. Like
Yeah, and then
that's
you can
so
share it.
smart. Yeah.
Bonus genius moment, if I may.
Yeah.
Whenever you have something on Spotify, whether it's music or a playlist or, podcast episode or whatever, you can share straight to your Instagram stories.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and when you set up the story, you can adjust it so it can be like, "Oh, here's this playlist and here's what I've," you can kinda see the top episodes that I've been on, and it's kind of like this cute graphic of the playlist, and what's really cool, you don't see it when you first design it, but you can design stuff around it and say, "Hey, check out this playlist," or, whatever you wanna put around. You don't see it at first, but when you click to send it to your stories, and then you see it in your stories, in the upper left-hand corner, there's an arrow that says play in Spotify, and people can click right on it, go straight to Spotify.
See, and that looks so professional to be able to share it that way
Yeah.
too.
And the one link, it's very efficient, and like you said, and then, for some, you could embed a playlist right into your website, but yeah, having that one link as opposed to constantly updated, which I did start by doing. So I've learned all the lessons, and I've tried the stuff, and I'm like, "Well, this is awkward, and this isn't updated," and now just updating that one playlist and sharing it has been so much easier, and that's a great thing for guests, and then it can also be a great thing to share specialty, like, episodes, which is one of the tips I wanted to share today, and I actually have playlists on my website of my podcast so that grouped topics, can go together, and if someone wants to binge listen, they can check it out, and Buzzsprout is the host that I use. They allow you to tag, and then you can generate a playlist by the tags, and so that's how I do it.
Wait, I have never thought of that doing a playlist by topic.
Yes.
Ah, that's like so I'm getting so many ideas right now because it makes it so easy. I especially think of my show Notable Peeps, where I have a lot of people talk about grief or,
Yes.
infertility or like whatnot. So then they're all grouped in one. I'm gonna
Exactly,
go
and it
nerd
doesn't.
out.
Yeah, and if an episode is about infertility and grief, let's say, you can have multiple tags and then have it show up in the different playlists. So it's not like it has to be dedicated to one playlist. So on my podcast page on my website, for example, there's a 2025 recap playlist because I did a cool recap at the end of the year, but there's a strategy call playlist because I will do live strategy calls on my podcast where I actually coach people. So you can hear how I coach. There's a tech tools one, a grief and trauma one, just the solo episodes only. If you just want the shorter, bingeable 15 to 20 minutes, just me talking to you about concepts. Yeah, it's different kinds of playlists like that. And yeah, when you're looking to binge a topic, at least I know that's what I love to do. That makes it so much easier.
Well, and like what you said with the coaching, because 'cause I've been wanting to do sort of case studies with different people,
Yeah,
and that make like, I'm like, "Oh," like, this is why I love doing Pod Savvy Guide because now I have all these ideas and I'm like, "I can't wait to, like, work on them."
Steph's going to
Okay.
be lousy with playlists real soon.
Right? But, okay, I'm gonna link your website in the show notes, so guys, go check out how Lisa has done this on her
Mhm.
website because I think that this is a strategy that a lot of podcasters aren't using, and when you think about Netflix, right?
Yep.
They do that same thing of, like, "Here's shows you might like,"
Yep.
with, like, thriller, romance, reality TV. You're doing that same thing so that your listeners can binge your show. So
And
smart.
those concepts, that idea of deep linking, that's also something I've done significantly, and I've done more and more of it over the years, where when I have a topic, and especially after you've done it for a while, and I'm sure you know this, you're like, "Oh, well, I'm doing this topic, but I've done so many more of the same topic." You wanna mention, like, all those other episodes, but that could be a lot, and so you still wanna deep link it into your episode and still mention you have other episodes. Sometimes there's one or two you can specifically mention by title, and that's great. But other times, if I have so many, I'm like, you want to talk decluttering? We just talked decluttering. Decluttering's a huge topic. Go to this playlist. There's a decluttering playlist. Just go there, binge away, as opposed to me trying to list a bunch or miss one that might be the thing someone really needs to hear.
Wait, so you put the playlist in the show notes?
Yeah, and I'll mention it too. It's, like, so
Oh.
simple to be like, "Go to positivelyproductive.com/podcast." You will find the playlists. Click on the declutter one if that's the one you're interested in. And it's so easy to say in the show, put it in the show notes, and it's not like multiple links, which gets confusing and cluttery. So it simplifies the process in so many ways.
Okay, what are your other tips like this? Because I love seeing that, like, productivity mind of yours work in podcasting, so I wanna soak everything up.
Okay, so the playlists, we talked about that, it's one of my
Mhm.
favorite things. Templates are another one. Templates, templates, templates. And what I mean by that is the text that you're going to use over and over again so that you are sure of the format that you have, that you're not missing anything, that you have collected information where you need it. Now, I want to be clear that I do have a ClickUp for my podcast. And so I have an intake form right in there where people send their information. So if I have a guest, I'm getting their bio and pertinent links and things like that.
And it's ClickUp, you said?
ClickUp is what I happen to use. I used to use Trello. What's interesting is I still love Trello for me personally. So as a guest, I use a Trello board to track all of my, guest spots as
Mhm.
well. And
Okay.
then I keep all the information there. I have, whatever the main image is from the guest spot that I had with you, the pertinent information about when we got together, when we recorded, I have it labeled and everything. So I happen to have that in Trello, but for my podcast, because I use a podcast editor, we work together in ClickUp because that just works better. So that information will come in, but when I'm ready as a host to prepare for my episode, I want to think about the questions I may ask. The points, especially the key points I do not want to miss, right? You get someone in and you're like, you have experience in this and I want to pick your brain. There are things I don't wanna forget, and I like to write things down. So, I have a template ready to go for a guest template, Google Docs, super simple. I just copy it, the template, and then put in the pertinent information, copy paste from wherever, I'm all set to go. I do the same thing with scripts. I also do the same thing. I have a template ready to go for when I'm a guest. I have a double template for you because this is the second time I'm on your show.
Mhm.
And even if it seems really obvious and I know the stuff off the cuff, I still wanna be prepared. I wanna come in ready and with the right intentions. We're talking it's meta today. I'm a podcaster talking about podcasting. I'm not
Mhm.
talking about what I do as a coach per se. I wanna be ready for that moment and show up fully prepared, and a template does it, especially if for some reason someone says, "Okay, give me your bio or tell me something quick about you." Like, now I may have it memorized, but when you're new in the beginning, it's really good to have it written down and ready to go. And so templates are the key. And it's so easy to keep track of things. And it's also easy once you have that to go back to an old one. If someone says, I want to have the same conversation about how to create the proper to-do list for you. I mean, because apparently I've been doing it wrong. I can go back to notes that I had from another guest spot and copy that over.
Man, and you know what I love what you said of making sure those key points, because it like, questions are one thing, like, they can come and go, but, like,
Right.
being like, "Okay, these are the areas to touch on," that's huge, and I love that you do that when you have your template for when you're being a guest too, so that you just everything's in one place and you can quickly look down and be prepared.
Yeah, and reference it, and nobody minds when you, like, wanna check a note real quick or you're like, "Hey, let me look that up," or whatever, or and most of the time, you don't even have to say anything, and I think it's so interesting, and you made this point earlier that, I keep bringing up both as a guest and as a host because you're right, they both they both teach you so much about the other, and I think when you're a host, you do need to think about being a guest because it helps make your guest's experience that much better, and when you're a guest, if you understand what it's like to be a host, and I always say that when I'm pitching myself, I'm like, "I promise you, I'm gonna make your life easy because I get it."
Well, so I want to, like, pick your brain a little bit about being a guest,
Yeah.
because, like, that's my next challenge I wanna do because I am not usually a guest on podcast, and so the last one I was on, I was nervous on, and this was, like, last fall, but I do think it's good, like, if you're going to build that playlist of here's my expertise, I think sometimes as podcasters, we forget how great it is not only with SEO,
Mhm.
but also other clips to be on other podcasts.
Oh, for
So
sure.
so did you just, like, be like, "Okay, here's my points that I'm gonna talk about?" Like, how did you, come up with what you're gonna talk about as a guest?
Okay, so first of all, you're right about being a guest. It is still one of the best ways to promote your podcast because if you think about it, it's a very simple ask. If you're like, hey, where do we find you? Or what's going on? Or what are you promoting? And I'm like, listen, I'm just here having great conversations and go listen to my podcast. It's such an easy ask. So I love that you're thinking this way because it's going to be so good for promotional purposes and also for continuing the conversations that really matter to you. You can take what you've learned on your podcast and share it with others. So, to answer your question, it's usually a good idea to come up with 3 to 4 main talking points. I'll say 3. I think I have 4 just because one of them is about podcasting. I have experience now, so I could talk about that.
Mhm.
But, like 3 main topics, usually some kind of almost as if it were like a blog title or something like that, like the how to like the idea of what I say, like how to find the right to-do list for you, or why your to-do list is sabotaging you, or things like that. It's like there's some kind of phrase and some kind of main topic item where someone sees that they go, ooh, that's something my listeners would like to hear. That's something I would like to hear, and I think my listeners would like to hear it too. And so if you have like at least 3 of those, you can send those out and I usually say, "Hey, here's what I'm talking about." Decluttering and simplifying is one of them, and we can mix and match if you want. It depends on the audience. And then pitching is gonna be different. But what I would say to you in terms of starting is even if you pick one thing where you're like, "This is the most comfortable thing for me to talk about that means the most to me." And I love digging into it, and I could talk about it all day. Start with that. Generally, for pitches, the options are nice or if you're like posting in a group or whatever, but to start, one topic is fine. Always start simply. The key is to get in there, do it again, and keep repeating it until you get really comfortable with the topic.
You saying something made me think, and I have not thought about this before, but as podcasters, sometimes we're the ones listening, right? We're the
Mhm.
ones soaking things up. But when you do have something that you just want to be on a soapbox, you just want to discuss it, like get other people's opinions.
Yeah.
That's when the podcast tour of going on different things is great. Like, just barely, I took a break from social media,
Mhm.
podcasting, like movies, TV, and it was a game changer for me. And that is a topic that I'm so passionate about right now that I could nerd out and go do a bunch of episodes. And yeah, it has nothing to do with podcasting or my job, but like my friends and family are tired of hearing me talk about it.
Then that'd be a great thing to guest about. So yeah, and I think searching for the audience that's going to want that is key. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of steps to be done in terms of finding the right space to do it in. And also, if you've been in podcasting like you are, you have a network, so you can ask people when you're like, "Hey, here's something I would love to chat on podcasts about. Do you know someone who would want to talk about this?" You start using your network in that way, and you're bound to get some doors opening
Well,
for you.
and it's fun too because you look at, like, the big book tours, right? Like,
Mhm.
do a big press tour or, like, movies or TV. It's like, even if you make your press tour, like, "I'm gonna go on 5 shows that I wanna talk about this topic." Like, it's probably exciting thing to be stretching yourself a little bit and being on these other shows.
Oh, it is, and because hosts are different, situations are different, platforms are so different, it can be a challenge, it can be nerve-wracking. Also and it depends on how you work as a person. This is kind of more of the side of my productivity coaching. I love to talk about personalizing things in a way that works for you. And if you are at all extroverted or essentially, and this doesn't just mean that you're social, it means that you're an external processor and you get the best ideas when you're having the conversations. That would be the case for me. So sometimes it'll be like, "I can't wait to hear what you have to say, Lisa." And I'm like, "Me too, because I don't know what's coming out of my mouth." But once that happens, I'll listen back. Sometimes I'll ask for a transcript from the host. I'll be
Mhm.
like, "Oh, what I said was like, I don't want to brag, but I think it was genius. I don't know. It seemed really good. Like I like, woo, I never said it that way. This is so cool." And I get all excited and I'm like, "What did I just say?" It's like having a recipe and you're like, "What'd you do?" And I'm like, "I have no idea." So it's really great to be able to go back and be like, "Can I?" Anymore now, transcripts are just, everyone's doing them.
Oh,
So it's
yeah,
easy to be like,
super
"Hey, could you
easy.
shoot that over?" They're like, "No problem." And then I could see what I actually said and use that to promote something. One of the best concepts that I had that I created workshops out of it, came from being a guest on a podcast. So yeah, the ideas flow so freely and you capture them and keep repurposing them.
That's so cool that, like, it came from a podcast,
Mhm.
like, one of your workshops and everything, and I think that that's just because I'm the same way, like, when I'm talking to people, I'm getting those ideas, and when I'm sharing something I learned, they flow a little bit more too, and so
Yeah.
that's cool. Okay, I wanna pick your brain
Mhm.
on solo episodes. Like, how do you do your solo episodes? Because for a lot of people, and for me forever, solo episodes felt awkward. Like, and now that I've done a ton, like, I've gotten used to them, but, what's your tips for doing solo episodes?
I am so glad you asked that because I want to step into this group, high five you, maybe exchange like a secret handshake because I'm wearing the t-shirt too that says solo episodes were so awkward when I started. I was like, yay, I can have a conversation, but now I'm all alone. Now really, who wants to hear what I have to say? Oh my God. So first of all, telling you I'm coming from that perspective and I had to get over my fear. So I found different ways. And the way that I did it, and again, it's going to be different for everyone, but I knew for me that I had to script mine. I had to write it down first. I didn't want to write a blog, but I needed to write first before I could speak. And I think it's because I have a background in doing voiceovers. So I was used to reading scripts, and I can read scripts so that it doesn't sound like I'm reading a script. I'm not reading a script right now, but
Mhm.
that's something that I can do, and I'm comfortable with it. I'm comfortable with reading quickly and reading what's on the page and sharing it like I'm saying it for the first time. So that felt good because then I knew I wasn't missing those key points that I wanted to make, that it was cohesive, that it was in the order that I wanted it to be. I wasn't missing anything and I could start and close. And I could also learned to time how long it would be and how many words I would write on a topic based on that amount of time. So that's what I did. I would say though, come up with what makes you feel the best because the other thing could be you might feel very comfortable riffing on something that I would put maybe keywords in a Google Doc where it's like, I want to hit these points in this order. And then as it goes, you could always record it in pieces too. I mean, people do this on YouTube all the time. You can tell that the video has been edited in pieces or chapters, and you can try it. I think that's the first thing I would say is try talking about something and see how comfortable you feel, whether you need the script or you need the key points. And the other tip I would give for just about anyone when you're doing something like this, don't try to be a hero and make this long. Make it as short as possible because that'll make it so much easier for you when you're like, I have to keep talking. If I have to keep talking, I'm just going to talk about something that has nothing to do with anything. And now I don't know what I'm saying. What did I just say? Like, you're going to like trip
Mhm.
yourself up. Don't do that. Anytime you want to make something happen and uh, show up better for it, reduce the scope, make it smaller, make it shorter. Those work the best. Those are my tips.
And, like, I didn't realize, like, with voiceover, how you're able to read without making it sound like you're reading. Like, what
Mhm.
are tips with that?
Repetition,
Okay.
practice. It also making sure that you write how you speak.
Oh, okay.
Right? Because it's one thing to be like, "Well, I learned all the grammar and I don't wanna sound like AI," or whatever. Like, no,
Mhm.
just write how you speak, write how you talk, and as a matter of fact, and this might sound really funny, but go for it if it works for you. If you're an external processor, you might wanna consider doing a voice memo. Like, in other words, you're speaking at first, and maybe it comes out okay, but if you're jumbled, but you liked some of your points, then do, a transcription of that and then pull out the pieces that you like and make a script out of that. Like there are many ways to get to that point, but I think as far as like reading something, it's practicing it. And maybe in that case, start with something like your intro, right? Because that'll be a short script that will be the same thing maybe every single time if you do it in that style, or maybe just practice recording when you introduce yourself and have that bio set up and then record it. And then from there, I think one of the best ways, and this is something I do a lot more now that I'm comfortable with it, is to have the script and read it, but feel free to interject and ad lib. Like I'm constantly doing side note. I also want to mention this, that will definitely make it sound like you're not reading because you're, throwing in like uh little like bonus points and that's not going to be the same thing as reading a full and complete and smooth sentence. Now you're sort of jumping all around. I always have like what I call parenthetical thoughts where I say something and go, oh, also, and as soon as you do something like that, interject into your own sentence, it doesn't sound like a script.
Yeah, I think that, like, because forever I was trying to read the teleprompter, like, when I started solo episodes,
Uh-huh.
and I did sound, like, robotic, and I looked like because it wasn't, like, right on,
Yeah.
you know? I think it's easier to read a script if you aren't, like, on video sometimes,
Yes.
like, when you're first starting out. But like what you said with the topics, I can now put on my whiteboard, 5 topics and just like you said, just go on and it's like
Nice.
you can see what it is. And then I have to edit a lot because I go on rambles
And
or
that's
whatnot,
right, but
but
that's practice, and
yeah.
you get better and better at it. What's really funny is I still have to script my solos because that feels better, and it also allows me the chance to go over the topics completely and think about things that I wanna add, examples that I wanna add. Do I wanna add links? Is there a place where I talked about this before that instead of going I can go over it again as a review because it's good to review, but I don't have to get into such detail because I explained it in another episode, that process of writing it helps me gather all those thoughts, make sure that I'm citing research properly, all the things that really matter to me. But yeah, if you can riff off of stuff and then edit it, that's great too. It's all a matter of what you're comfortable with and what creates authentic and valuable content.
Well, but I am at a place where I want it to be a little bit more polished, right? So
Yeah.
I'm always asking, like, how do other people do it? And I love what you said of doing the voice memo and then doing transcripts,
Yep.
because that's easy for me as I have a commute, driving home, saying what I want to say, look at the transcripts. And then, like what you said, I think it does add more substance when you can revert, whether it's to your own stuff or other people's stuff.
Yeah.
And so then there's more than just your word backing it up.
Here's another idea. And so this is like variations on the theme, right? Of whether you need it scripted or you could like have keywords and kind of riff. Maybe it's a hybrid. Maybe you have something where you have sort of an introductory thing where you're like, here's the topic I want to set up, why it's important, etc. And you have that somewhat scripted, and you could have gotten it from a voice note and transcribed it, however you have it. You have that. Then you have your tips that you're giving, and those are just keywords, and you riff off of those. Like, cause I know at this point I can riff off of that where you're like, "Hey, what's the deal with time blocking and what do you do instead?" And I don't need a script for that. I can tell you, "Oh, here's an example. This is what I do. This is where I got stuck. This is how it came about." And then at the end, you kind of bookend it. You have that little introductory that you might have written, and then at the end, maybe you have a closing where it's like, here are the thoughts. This is what I want you to take away. What I suggest that you do as an action item. Here's where you can get more information because I have it in these other episodes. Like that's a place you could capture in one spot those things you don't want to forget or you want to send them to or deep link. But yeah, it's a mix based on really what feels most comfortable and keep it simple and you can grow into it.
Well, but I do think that what we were talking about, like the wrapping up and like all of that, it elevates it to
I
a
do. Yeah.
higher level of professionalism. And I agree what you said at the beginning too of like keep it short and
Yeah.
like because we all have had that time where you're just talking and you're like, okay, like now I'm just saying stuff to just say
Just to
stuff.
say stuff.
Like we all sort of hit that point, and when you get to that point, just cut it.
Like, and that's a wrap. So true.
So, but it's fascinating hearing your perspective on solo episodes, and I'm excited to test some of those out.
And I,
And
I encourage you to do it because it took me a while to get used to it, but now I am and I'm on a roll and they're like super popular. So I'm excited.
that's great. I
Yeah.
love that. My last question for you,
Hmm.
and I could talk to you for hours. We'll have to chit chat again on here because
Sounds
it's
good.
so fun. As you've done all of these episodes and you've done interviews,
Mhm.
like what are some of the interviews that have stood out to you? Because I think the greatest thing as a host is for just a second, you get to step into someone else's shoes and see their perspective and their point of view
Are you asking what kinds of interviews have stood out to me as being a guest or as being a host?
as being a host.
You know, I'll tell you this, and I think this information is really good when you go to pitch to different podcasts. Someone who shows up, who's listened to my show and shows me that they care about my show like I do and what we're trying to achieve in this conversation. They understand my audience, they understand what I'm trying to do for them, and we just have a chemistry where we respect each other and we're trying to bring so much value to our conversation. That's all I'm ever looking for. I get pitched a lot. I take the compliment that I've been around. I'm getting out there, I have a lot of downloads, a lot of really great reviews, and there's awareness about my podcast, so people find me everywhere. That's awesome, but also I get pitched so blindly for people who obviously don't have a clue what I'm trying to accomplish. The people who take the time to be personal, to reach out, to say, "I care about what you're doing, and here's how I can serve the big picture conversation." Those are the ones that stay with me, and they're the ones where we have the best episode. We have the best conversation because they're matching my energy, not necessarily energy like, "Ooh, am I, spastic or am I calm?" But matching the energy of how much I care about what I'm bringing to my listeners, and they're there with me as a partner.
See, I think that that's such a good reminder because, yeah, if you're wanting for anyone, if they're wanting to be a guest or, as a host even of, like, to take the time to pay attention to what other people are doing.
Yeah. And to listen to the podcast and to understand and to believe in what they have to say. And I've had to get very particular over the years. And sometimes I feel it's tough because I'm a nice person and I would like to give everyone a chance. But at some point, you have a limited amount of spaces. And I also take that like honor very seriously too. If
Mhm.
someone says, "Hey, I'm going to invite you on," that's why I said I make my notes and I'm ready to go. I know what your podcast is about. I know what you're about, and I'm ready to, pick my brain for as long as you want. I'm ready to show up, and that's all I ask of others. But that to me, when you have that, those are the best conversations.
That's really I love getting your, like, perspective as a host and as a guest, like, I just think that it's so valuable, and, you talked about, that your podcast has grown and that, like, people if that like, you're expert in productivity and, like, what you were saying, um, time management and everything. How have you been able to grow your podcast?
So being a guest, right?
Okay.
Having guests and then they share. And here's something that's like so important. When you are a host and you have guests on, make it so easy for them to share. And I call it celebrating, where we tag each other on social media and I give them personalized marketing collateral, beautiful images, pull quotes. I give them text written for from their perspective that they can copy, paste, or modify as they want so that they can share everywhere that they want. And I make sure to share a lot and tag them as well. That's a huge way. Those are different ways to grow your numbers. Obviously, paying attention to SEO and placement of your podcast. And I think just that consistency of showing up. And again, it doesn't have to be weekly. It doesn't have to be any specific like pattern or cycle. What it needs is consistency that your listeners will come to expect and trust and grow with you. And I've also been able to use it as a lead magnet for my clients. And what's interesting is I not only get people who are like, "I've listened to your podcast. I trust what you have to say. I want to talk more about coaching." I also have clients who coach with me, and then I send them to podcast episodes to strengthen the conversations that we're having, to give them homework where they can listen to something on their own and try something out and then come back to me. So it's really been, like I said, one big conversation that has been a support in so many different ways.
And how do you grow your podcast?
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot harder, um, if you don't go into it with a business mindset of when people are thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna make money off sponsors," and, like, all these people just miraculously coming to it. That's not really how it works, you
Yes,
know?
there's so much more to it, but there's a lot of potential. You're right. You need a business mindset, and you need to understand that it's a marathon.
Lisa, thank you so much for chatting with me and give us just a short little snippet of what people can expect in tuning into your podcast because I want them to go listen to you there as well.
Oh, thank you so much for asking. I am here to redefine productivity. I believe productivity is meant to support a more satisfying, joy filled life, not the other way around. We're not here to be productive. Productivity is the means to that beautiful end and the journey within. And so we need to get over pushing, hustling, criticizing ourselves, and what you will find are shame-free productivity conversations at Positively Living, because that's what it's all about. We address productivity with compassion, with humor, with fun, and in a way that makes it work for you.
That's a great plug. You can tell that you've done a lot of episodes because you're so on it. I love it. And I also, now that you got me thinking of linking, because I'm so bad at linking stuff, I'm going to be linking the episode I did with you on 52 weeks that we
Yes.
talked all about
There you go.
product. We talked about, yeah, like we talked about productivity and everything. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely you'll get a sense of what I'm about by listening to that episode and about the idea of shame-free productivity for sure.
sweet. Well, thank you so much, Lisa. And you guys, whatever it is that you need to do to further your podcast this week, I hope that you've been able to learn something and have it spark some creativity so that you can get out there and start creating because your audience needs your voice, your message, and you. So I will see you guys next Saturday.